Hello dear students, myself Dr. Sachin Gurule, Assistant Professor from Department of Zoology, KTHM College, Nasik. In the previous video of subject Entomology first of chapter Morphology of Insect, we are discussing the topic that is thoracic skeleton. So thoracic skeleton of an insect is consist of the three sclerites. The dorsal one is known as the tergite, or it is also known as a tergum. Then ventral one is known as the sternite, or it is also referred as the sternum. And from the lateral side, these tergite and sternites are interconnected with one another by the pair of pleurites, or they are also referred as the pleuron, of which we have already completed with the first two sclerites, that is tergites and the sternites. And in this video we are going to discuss about the third sclerite or belongs to the thorax of insect, that is pleurites or the pleuron. And another topic we are going to discuss, that is thoracic endoskeleton, that is commonly known as the endothorax. So before start with the pleurite, let's take a quick summary of the previous lecture, that is tergite. Obviously this tergite is the dorsal sclerotic plate which is found in the insect known as a tergite. This tergite of the prothoracic region is differ from that of the pterothoracic region, because in case of the pterothoracic region, the whole area of the tergite is divisible into the three part due to the presence of the two transverse suture. This transverse suture is the prescutellar inflation or prescutellar suture and scutoscutellar inflation. So due to the presence of this transverse suture, the whole area is divisible into the prescutum, scutum and the scutellum. And in addition, there are two additional sclerites are there which are intersegmental in origin. From the frontal side there is a acrotergite, and from the posterior part of the tergite there is the postnotum, that is the postnotum. And in case of the meso and metathoracic segment, they consist of the phragma. These phragmata, these are useful for giving the site of attachment for the muscles which are known as dorsal longitudinal muscle. So this is the tergite. The tergite of the pterothorax is characterized by presence of the anterior and posterior nodal processes from the lateral side, which are providing the site where the wing bases they are get attached, so that the wings are get articulated with the mesothoracic region and the metathoracic region into the anterior and posterior nodal processes respectively. So this is about the summary of the tergite we have learned. Then next we have learned, that is the sternite. Again, that sternite in case of the insect belongs to all three segments are the same. There is no distinction between the prosternite and the pterosternite, because the structure of all the thoracic sternites is very same. They do not differ from the prothoracic sternite from that of the pterothoracic sternite as like that of the tergite. Again here, due to the presence of the two transverse suture, that is anterior submarginal suture and sternocostal suture, again the area of that sternite or the eusternum is divided into the three regions. The proximal region is known as a presternum, middle region is referred as a basisternum, and the posterior region is referred as the sternellum. So these three forms the first part of the sternite, that is eusternum, and second one posterior part is known as the spinsternum. That spinsternum is characterized by having the peg-like apodem which is known as the spina, and from that spina the furcal arms which are arises, which are giving the support to the sternellum, as well as they are responsible for giving a space for attachment of the ventral longitudinal muscles. So this is the summary regarding the sternite. Now in this lecture we are going to learn the pleurites. The pleura are primarily the membranous structures belongs to the thorax, and they are responsible for joining this notum with that of the sternite. So the plate or the sclerotic plate which joins the dorsal tergite with that of the ventral sternite is referred as the pleurites or the pleura. Now they contains the sclerite which are derived from mostly the limb bases, subcoxae, and the prothoracic pleuron, it also resembles with that of the pterothoracic pleuron. Means here again there is no distinction between the prothoracic pleurite from that of the pterothoracic pleurite, as the structure for both the pleurites is all the pleurites is the same one. The pleuron of each side, it consists of the three sclerite. The one is located at the ventral side. This ventral is referred as the sternopleurite. Then anterior is known as the anapleurite, and in between the anapleurite and sternopleurite, the middle plate is referred as the coxopleurite. So in this way, the pleuron of each thoracic segment consists of the three sclerite, ventral sternopleurite, dorsal anapleurite, and middle one is known as the coxopleurite. The sternopleurite, it articulates with that of the coxa. So here in this diagram you can see, so this is the ventral plate known as the sternopleurite, and this one is the coxal area. So it is firmly attached or closely attached with that of the coxa, and it is fused with the sternum and becomes its integral part. So from the ventral side, this sternopleurite has the connection with that of the sternum, which is the ventral sclerotic plate of the thorax, and from the dorsal side it is having the attachment with that of the coxal processes. The anapleurite and the coxopleurites, these are separated from one another in case of the pterygote insect and the larvae of Plecoptera. But in case of adult pterygote insect, these anapleurite and the coxopleurite are fused to form a common pleuron. Means from this character you can easily distinguish between the pterygote insect and the pterygote insect. Being in pterygote insect, this anapleurite is separated from that of the coxopleurite, while in case of the pterygote insect there is no such a kind of the separation can be found with the anapleurite and the coxopleurite. In these insects, they forms a distinct sclerite. The distinct sclerite is referred as the trochantin. So here in the diagram of the pleura of pterygote insect, you can see the additional sclerite is there, which is known as a trochantin. Keep remember that trochantin is absent into the pterygote insect, being is only the characteristic of lower pterygote insect. Again, in case of higher pterygote insect, that trochantin may be absent or may be reduced. So in case of the pterygote insect, so the fusion of the anapleurite and the coxopleurite is giving rise to the formation of another sclerite, which is known as the trochantin. And this trochantin has an additional ventral articular sclerite for the articulation with that of the coxa. Now, in case of higher insect, the trochantin may be reduced or may be fused with the lower margin of the episternum. So this part is referred as the episternum, and the anterior margin of that trochantin, which is an additional sclerite of pterygote insect, is having the connection with that of the episternum. Now the pleuron of the pterothoracic segment. Pterothoracic segment being the mesothoracic and metathoracic, which bears a wings. It has the characteristic feature that is divided by the pleural suture, from which extend from the pleural wing processes onwards to the pleural coxal processes into the two pleurite. Anterior is known as the episternum and the posterior is known as the epimeron. So here in this diagram you can see this kind of the suture, which is a vertical suture. It starts from the pleural wing processes at the dorsal side and it ends into the coxal processes at the ventral side. Means it arises from the pleural wing processes from dorsally and it reaches up to the coxal processes at the ventral side, and due to the presence of this suture, the whole area of the pleurite is distinguished into the two regions. So this anterior region is referred as the episternum and the posterior region is referred as the epimeron. Now in some insect, again this episternum and epimeron, due to the presence of transverse suture, is again divisible into the two. Suppose here in this diagram, just follow the cursor. If the transverse suture is present exactly here in the center, which is further responsible for dividing the area of that episternum and epimeron into the two equal half. The anterior part of the episternum is referred as anteepisterna and the posterior part is known as the cataepisterna. Similarly, the epimeron, due to the presence of such a transverse suture, this epimeron is also divisible into the anterior and the posterior sclerite, subsclerite, which is referred as the anteepimera and cataepimera. So, this kind of the division only and only present when there is a presence of transverse suture which is responsible for dividing the area of episternum and epimeron only. Okay. The pleuron of the meso and metathorax bears a pair of spiracle each, and presence of two pair of spiracle on the thorax seems to be the common feature in among all the insects except the dipleura. Dipleura, as the name suggests, di in the sense two and pleura means this opening or the spiracular opening. Only in case of the dipleura, there are two pair of the spiracles are present belongs to the thoracic region. But what is generality? Generally, all insect contains only two spiracle, one on mesothorax and one on the metathoracic region. So this is a universality except that of the dipleura, which has the meso and metathoracic segment possesses a two pairs of spiracle. So this is about the pleurite, and with this pleurite we have completed the thoracic exoskeleton. Okay, exoskeleton in the sense the external sclerotic plates which is going to forming a compact box like part of the each respective thoracic segment. So this is about the thoracic skeleton. The next topic, that is endothorax or endoskeleton of the thoracic segment. Now endothoracic segment, endoskeleton of the thoracic segment is also referred as the endothorax. A large number of apodings are produced from the inside of the thorax from that of the exoskeletal elements, that is tergite from dorsal side, sternite from the ventral side and the pleurite from the lateral side. So these exoskeletal structures constitute a sort of compact thoracic endoskeleton, and this compact thoracic endoskeleton is popularly known as the endothorax. Now, owing to the origin, the endothorax is composed of three types of endoskeletal processes. The tergite, endoskeletal process of tergites are referred as endotergite. Then endoskeletal process of sternite is referred as the endosternite, and plural processes of the pleurite is referred as the endopleurites. So all these endosternite, endotergite and endopleurite, these are going to contributing the structure which forms the endoskeleton of the thorax and is referred as the endothorax. The endotergites are also known as the phragmata. Now in the tergite, we have already seen the phragmata. That phragmata are present only into the meso and metathoracic segment wing. This segment in case of pterygote insect only contains the wings. While the prothoracic segment, there is an absence of the phragmata. So these phragmata, these are the processes which are coming from the tergite or the notum. They are forming the endotergal structure for that of the endothorax. So they develop transversely from the intersegmental sclerite and mostly occurs in three numbers. Three numbers in the sense it is coming from the mesothorax, metathorax and first abdominal tergite. So they differs in position from group of insect to other and exhibiting a wide transposition. They offer the site of attachment for the dorsal longitudinal muscle. So same function we have already discussed into the when we are learning the tergite, that is the phragmata is responsible for providing the site of attachment for the dorsal longitudinal muscle which bring about the dorsal stroke movement of the wings among the insects. So this is about the endotergite. So let's see the second then, endosternite. These endosternites are developed in the form of paired ventral apophysis from the pit of the eusterna lying in between the base sternum and the sternum. Both endosterna fused together by a third short median spinsternal apophysis, and that spinsternal apophysis is referred as the spina that we have already learned into the sclerite, that is the sternite. The spina, and it also forms a composite Y-shaped endoskeletal body, and this Y-shaped endoskeletal body is referred as the furca. So that we have already mentioned when we are learning the sternite. So from the spina, which is a peg-like apodem, it has the outgrowth in the form of Y-shaped arm, and that Y-shaped arm is referred as the furca. So these furca along with the spina, they are forming the endoskeletal processes from the sternite, and that is referred as the endosternum. So this structure is known as the furca, and in case of odonate, the sternites of either side fused medially and form a typical endoskeleton which is covering over the thoracic central nervous system. So in case of odonata only, the arms belongs to the respective side of that furca, they are get meet over one another, and from which the nervous system is usually passed. So this is the case is only found into the single order, that is the odonata. While in the higher order, the spina is completely indistinct. So this is about the endosternite. And the last one is the endopleurite, which is the endosternal processes which are arises from the pleura. The endopleurites are represented by the pleural ridge which develop from the pleural suture in the pterothoracic segment, and these apodems are known to be well developed in case of again the odonata, and sometimes that pleural ridge is providing the pleural arms. So this pleural ridge and the pleural arms, these are going to form the lateral part of the endothorax, which is referred as the endopleurite. So in this way, the from the exoskeletal processes from the inside, they are developed and which are going to form the sclerotic plates or the apodems from the inner side of the thorax, contributing the formation of the endothorax, that is endosternite, endotergite and endopleurite. So this is about the thoracic endoskeleton known as the endothorax. So with this, we have completed the thoracic segmentation, thoracic exoskeleton and thoracic endoskeleton. Thank you very much.